The bright lights of the studio shone like stars fallen to earth. Cameras rolled, capturing every movement, every smile, and every hint of excitement in the room. The audience was buzzing, a low hum of chatter and laughter that grew louder as the announcer's voice boomed over the speakers. Tonight was not just any regular talk show. It was a night that fans had been waiting for. Two of the most beloved actors in Hollywood were appearing together on the same stage: Will Smith, the man known for his energy, charm, and humor, and Keanu Reeves, the quietly charismatic actor who had captured the hearts of millions around the world. People in the audience whispered excitedly, comparing notes about their favorite movies. Some were fans of Will Smith's larger-than-life personality, remembering his roles in blockbuster films and his unforgettable music career. Others admired Keanu Reeves for his calm, thoughtful demeanor and for the roles that had shown his depth and talent. There was a sense that these two actors could not have been more different, yet that very difference made the night intriguing. Everyone wanted to see how they would interact. Backstage, the tension was surprisingly casual. Will Smith paced slightly, his eyes twinkling with mischief. He had a plan to make the show memorable, something that would surprise both the audience and Keanu. Will was famous for his quick wit, for being able to turn almost any situation into a joke, and tonight was no exception. But even he knew that Keanu was no ordinary guest. Keanu's calm presence often disarmed those around him, and Will knew he had to be clever if he wanted to make a mark. Meanwhile, Keanu Reeves sat quietly in his dressing room. He was calm, almost meditative, his fingers lightly drumming on the armrest of his chair. Unlike Will, he didn't feel the need to perform or to entertain off-camera. Keanu's focus was on being present, on listening to what others had to say, and on enjoying the moment without forcing it. He had experienced enough of Hollywood's loud and flashy side to know that sometimes, silence spoke louder than words. The host of the show, known for their energetic and playful style, came in to give last-minute instructions. "Remember," the host said with a smile, "we want this to be fun, but let's keep it respectful. You two are going to make television magic tonight." Will nodded enthusiastically, already imagining the jokes he could make. Keanu simply gave a small nod, serene and composed, ready for whatever the stage might bring. As the lights dimmed for the live audience, the excitement became almost tangible. People clutched their programs and leaned forward in their seats, eager to witness the first interaction between these two stars. The camera zoomed in on Will Smith as he walked confidently onto the stage. The audience erupted in cheers, their energy feeding off his presence. Will waved, laughed, and spoke to the crowd, showing the playful, magnetic personality that had made him famous. He moved easily, as if he had been born to command attention, and his every gesture was full of life. Then, quietly and almost unexpectedly, Keanu Reeves entered the stage. Unlike Will, his approach was understated, almost serene. The audience reacted immediately, though, giving him warm applause that reflected genuine admiration. Keanu smiled politely, acknowledging the cheers without exaggeration or showiness. There was a different kind of power in his calm, a quiet confidence that drew people in without demanding their attention. Where Will's energy was like a sparkling firework, Keanu's presence was like a steady candle glowing warmly in the dark. The host welcomed them both with great enthusiasm, asking about their recent projects and sharing some light-hearted banter. Will's answers were animated, full of gestures and laughter, while Keanu's responses were thoughtful, measured, and often sprinkled with a subtle humor that caught the audience by surprise. The contrast was fascinating. People couldn't take their eyes off the stage, wondering what might happen next. It was during this playful conversation that Will Smith's eyes lit up with an idea. He leaned slightly toward the host, whispering something that made the host chuckle and shake their head. The audience didn't know what was coming, but those few moments of quiet exchange built a kind of suspense that made the air feel electric. Will was preparing for a playful challenge, a little test to see how Keanu would respond under pressure. The stage lights glowed brighter as Will turned back to Keanu, his smile wide and full of charm. "You know," Will began, his voice teasing, People always say you're mysterious, like you have secrets the world doesn't know. I bet you've got some embarrassing stories from your early acting days. I wonder if you'll share one with us tonight." A ripple of laughter went through the audience. Some people whispered excitedly, wondering if Keanu would be caught off guard. Others leaned forward, intrigued by the prospect of seeing the usually composed actor react in a more human, vulnerable way. The atmosphere was electric, a mix of anticipation, curiosity, and pure entertainment. Keanu looked at Will calmly, his eyes thoughtful. He didn't flinch, didn't laugh nervously, and didn't show any sign of discomfort. Instead, he simply paused for a moment, as if considering the best way to respond. The silence that followed was brief, but it felt longer than it was. The audience noticed immediately. Something interesting was about to happen. Even backstage, the crew watched with anticipation. They had seen many interviews and many celebrity interactions, but the combination of Will Smith's playful energy and Keanu Reeves' calm demeanor promised something memorable. Everyone was aware that tonight might produce a moment that would be talked about long after the cameras were turned off. Will, sensing the tension, leaned forward slightly, ready to make his move. "Come on, Keanu," he said, his tone still teasing. "You can tell us. We're all friends here. Don't hold out on us." Keanu finally spoke, his voice calm, even, and gentle. "Well," he said softly, "I've had my share of awkward moments, like everyone else. But I think what matters is how you handle them, not just the moment itself." His words were simple, yet they carried a kind of wisdom that made the audience pause. There was no shame, no defensiveness, just an acknowledgement of life's natural awkwardness. The crowd responded with polite applause, intrigued by his answer, but still curious about how the playful challenge would unfold. Will laughed lightly, impressed by Keanu's composure. He knew this was going to be fun, not in the way he had initially expected, but in a way that might turn out to be even more entertaining. The host jumped in, keeping the conversation moving, asking about projects, inspirations, and experiences in Hollywood. Both actors shared their stories, and the contrast between their personalities became even more apparent. Will's energy kept the audience laughing and engaged, while Keanu's thoughtful answers gave people a sense of calm reflection and admiration. Together, they created a balance that was both entertaining and inspiring. As part one of the night came to a close, the audience felt that they were witnessing something special. They had seen the setup, the initial tension, and the first hints of what promised to be a memorable interaction. The combination of Will's playful spirit and Keanu's calm, wise presence created an atmosphere that was electric, engaging, and unforgettable. Everyone in the studio, from the crew to the audience, could sense that the real story was just beginning. What would happen next? How would Keanu respond if Will pushed a little further? The questions lingered in the air as the cameras panned over the excited faces, capturing the anticipation, curiosity, and thrill of a live moment that could become legendary. And so, with laughter, quiet nods, and sparkling eyes, the stage was set for a night of entertainment, charm, and unexpected wisdom, a night where two very different stars would meet, and where their personalities would clash, harmonize, and create a story that no one would forget. The cameras continued to roll as the energy in the studio reached a new level. The audience, still buzzing from the first moments of the show, leaned forward eagerly, sensing that something unexpected was about to happen. Will Smith, with his usual playful grin, turned toward Keanu Reeves. The twinkle in his eyes suggested that he had a surprise in mind, and the audience instinctively knew it. Will's presence was magnetic, and his ability to read the room meant that he always knew how to make moments memorable. "Keanu," Will said, leaning slightly closer, his voice carrying just the right amount of teasing. "You know, people talk a lot about your quiet personality. They say you're humble, mysterious, the kind of guy who doesn't brag or show off. But I've heard things, little stories from way back in the day. I wonder if you're brave enough to share one with us tonight." The crowd laughed lightly, sensing the playful challenge. Whispers and murmurs spread through the audience, everyone eager to see how the usually composed Keanu would react. Keanu, sitting with his calm demeanor, looked at Will carefully. His eyes were steady, and his posture relaxed. He didn't seem surprised or offended. Instead, he seemed to be assessing the best way to respond, which made the moment even more interesting. Will smiled, confident that he had caught Keanu off guard. He loved these kinds of challenges, moments where he could tease someone gently and see their reaction. He knew Keanu had a reputation for being almost impossibly calm in public appearances. But Will was determined to bring a bit of fun energy to the situation, to make the audience laugh, and maybe even to uncover a side of Keanu that few had ever seen. The host, sensing the tension and the excitement in the studio, decided to encourage the exchange. "Come on, Keanu," the host said with a laugh. "It's just friendly fun. You don't have to be shy." Will leaned back slightly, giving the impression that he was ready to pounce on any hesitation, and the audience leaned forward, captivated. There was a mixture of anticipation and excitement that filled the room. It was like watching two forces of different energies meet: Will with his lively, playful energy, and Keanu with his calm, steady presence. The contrast made the stage feel electric, alive with possibilities. Will decided to try a more direct approach. "All right," he said, smiling mischievously, "I've heard about this one movie you did early in your career, the one that didn't go exactly as planned. I won't say the name, but let's just say it was interesting. I bet the audience would love to hear about what really happened behind the scenes." The laughter in the audience grew louder. Some people were already imagining what Keanu's reaction might be. Others were curious if Keanu would defend himself, laugh it off, or stay completely composed. The tension in the room was exciting, almost like a live game being played out in front of everyone. Keanu paused, thinking carefully about how to respond. He could feel the energy from the audience and from Will, but he didn't feel pressured. His calm presence was like a steady anchor in the lively storm around him. When he finally spoke, his voice was even, smooth, and measured. "Well," he said quietly, "every project has its challenges. Some things go as planned, and some things don't. That's just part of learning and growing. I think it's more interesting to focus on the lessons than the mistakes." The audience reacted with polite applause, impressed by his composed answer. But Will wasn't done. He leaned forward, smiling broadly, ready to push a little further. "Come on, Keanu. That's a nice answer, but we all know there's more to it. We want the fun stories, the moments that made you laugh, or maybe even cringe a little." Keanu tilted his head slightly, acknowledging Will's playful challenge. He didn't look embarrassed or defensive. Instead, there was a subtle smile on his face, as if he were considering the perfect way to respond without losing his calm. "I suppose there are moments like that," Keanu said softly. "But sometimes, the story isn't as important as how you remember it. If it made you grow, laugh, or even just think differently, that's what counts." Will laughed heartily, impressed by Keanu's ability to answer without feeling cornered. The audience laughed along, sensing the playful exchange, and some even cheered. The energy in the room was a mix of humor, admiration, and curiosity. People were enjoying the rare opportunity to see these two personalities interact in real time. Encouraged by the audience's reaction, Will decided to try one more playful approach. He leaned closer, his tone teasing but friendly. "All right, Keanu," he said, "I'm going to give you a little hint. Imagine you're in that awkward scene, something went completely wrong, everyone is staring, and you have to keep a straight face. What would you do?" Keanu looked thoughtful for a moment. He didn't laugh or act flustered. Instead, he simply said, "I'd probably just do my best and trust that everyone else is doing theirs too. Life has a way of smoothing out the awkward moments if you handle them with patience and honesty." The audience reacted immediately. There was a murmur of approval, and some people clapped quietly, impressed by his calm wisdom. Even Will chuckled, realizing that Keanu had turned the playful challenge into a lesson in composure and perspective. The energy shifted slightly, from pure teasing to a shared appreciation of Keanu's thoughtful demeanor. The host jumped in to keep the conversation moving, asking both actors about their favorite memories from movies, sets, and early careers. Will shared stories full of humor and exaggeration, making the audience laugh loudly, while Keanu shared quieter, more reflective moments that made people think and smile. Together, they created a balance that was entertaining and memorable. As the segment continued, Will tried another playful tease. He gestured dramatically, pretending to act out a scene from one of Keanu's early films, exaggerating a small mistake for comedic effect. The audience laughed loudly, sensing Will's genuine charm and playful energy. Keanu, however, responded with a subtle smirk and a witty remark that acknowledged the joke without losing his calm. His words were simple but clever, turning the teasing back on Will in a way that made the audience cheer even louder. The cameras captured every moment, every facial expression, and every reaction from the audience. There was a rhythm developing between the two actors, a back and forth that felt natural, engaging, and entertaining. Will's energy pushed the scene forward, while Keanu's calm wisdom grounded it, creating a unique dynamic that the audience couldn't take their eyes off. By the end of the segment, it was clear that the playful attempt to embarrass Keanu had not gone as Will might have originally imagined. Instead, it had become something more interesting, a moment of connection, humor, and respect. Will's energy and Keanu's composure complemented each other, and the audience had witnessed a rare interaction that felt both spontaneous and meaningful. Even after the cameras stopped rolling, people in the studio continued to talk about the exchange. Some admired Will's playful charm and humor. Others were fascinated by Keanu's ability to remain calm, clever, and unflustered. Both had shined in their own ways, creating a memorable experience that would be shared and remembered for a long time. The segment had started as a playful challenge, a chance for Will to tease and maybe embarrass Keanu. But by the end, it had become a story about balance between humor and wisdom, energy and calm, spontaneity and thoughtfulness. The audience left feeling entertained, inspired, and a little in awe of the two stars who had shown that even in playful moments, respect and grace could shine through. And so, part 2 of the story closed with laughter, admiration, and a growing sense of anticipation. Everyone in the audience, from the front row to the last seat, knew that this interaction was something special, a rare glimpse into the personalities of two beloved actors, and a reminder that humor and composure could exist together in perfect harmony. The studio lights glowed warmly, highlighting every detail of the stage as the conversation continued. The audience was on the edge of their seats, fully aware that something remarkable was unfolding. Will Smith had attempted his playful challenge, teasing Keanu Reeves about stories from his past and trying to catch him off guard. But Keanu, as always, remained calm, collected, and thoughtful. The audience could feel the tension, but it was not uncomfortable tension, it was exciting, curious, and full of anticipation. People leaned forward, wondering what would happen next. Will, sensing the moment, decided to push the playful teasing just a little further. His smile was wide, his eyes sparkling with mischief. "Keanu," he said, lowering his voice slightly for effect, "I know you've faced some awkward moments in your career. I'm not talking about the easy ones, I mean the really funny, oh no, I hope nobody noticed moments. Don't tell me you've never had one." The audience laughed at the idea, imagining the usually composed Keanu caught in an embarrassing situation. Whispers of excitement and curiosity traveled through the crowd. Everyone wanted to see if the quiet, calm actor could crack a smile, laugh, or even blush. It was a rare opportunity to see Keanu in a different light. Keanu remained still for a moment, considering his response. He did not shift uncomfortably, nor did he appear nervous. Instead, he took a deep breath, his eyes thoughtful, and his expression gentle. The audience waited in silence, sensing that his answer would be something special. The pause itself added to the suspense, every second seemed longer than the last, and every eye in the studio was fixed on him. Finally, Keanu spoke. His voice was calm, even, and steady, yet carried a quiet strength that demanded attention. I think everyone has moments they might feel embarrassed about, he said softly. It's part of being human. But what I've learned is that embarrassment is temporary, and laughter, especially laughter at yourself, is lasting. The key is to be honest with yourself and not take the small things too seriously. The audience reacted immediately. There was a gentle applause, mixed with murmurs of agreement and admiration. Keanu's words were simple, but they carried weight. He had taken Will's playful teasing and transformed it into something thoughtful, something that made people reflect on their own lives. It was not just a witty remark, it was a lesson, quietly delivered in the middle of a live show. Will leaned back in his chair, laughing softly, clearly impressed. I see, he said, so you're telling me that even if something goes wrong on set, or you forget a line, or a scene doesn't turn out as planned, you just take it in stride. Keanu nodded. Exactly, he said. Life is full of unexpected moments. Some make you laugh, some make you think. The important thing is to keep going and to find humor and learning in every experience. That's what makes the moments memorable. The audience cheered more loudly this time. The energy in the studio shifted slightly. The playful tension was still there, but now it was mixed with admiration. People were amazed at how effortlessly Keanu could remain composed and turn a teasing situation into something meaningful. Even Will seemed momentarily taken aback, realizing that his playful attempt to embarrass Keanu had become a moment of wisdom for everyone watching. Will's grin widened, but he was no longer teasing. Instead, he leaned forward with genuine curiosity. Okay, Keanu, he said, I have to ask. Was there ever a moment when you really did feel embarrassed, when things didn't go as you expected? Keanu smiled slightly, recalling a memory from long ago. Oh, there have been many, he said softly. Early in my career, there were times when I felt completely out of my depth. I would go on set, unsure of what to do, nervous about the people around me, and sometimes I would make mistakes. But over time, I learned that those moments don't define you. They are just part of the journey. The audience leaned forward, fascinated by this rare glimpse into Keanu's personal experience. It was a side of him few had seen before, open, honest, and relatable. People laughed softly at the shared understanding that everyone, even celebrities, experienced awkward moments. It made Keanu feel more human, more approachable, and even more admirable. Will nodded, clearly enjoying the honesty of the moment. You know, he said, most people would have cringed or gotten defensive. But you just handle it like it's nothing. That's impressive. Keanu shrugged gently, his calm demeanor unchanged. I try to, he said. It's not always easy, but I think it's better to accept the moment than to fight it. Laughter and humility go a long way. That's how you keep moving forward. The audience responded with more applause, some people even standing, clearly moved by the simplicity and wisdom of his words. Cameras panned over the crowd, capturing excited faces, wide smiles, and sparkling eyes. The energy in the room was contagious. Even those backstage were whispering about how remarkable this exchange had become. Will, sensing the moment could be even more memorable, decided to add a little dramatic flair. He leaned closer to Keanu, lowering his voice for effect, and said, So, you're telling me, even if I tried to embarrass you right now, in front of all these people, you'd just laugh it off? Keanu looked at Will steadily, his eyes calm and his expression gentle, yet there was a hint of playfulness in his subtle smile. I think, Keanu said slowly, that depends on what you mean by embarrassment. Life has many moments that could make you feel that way. But if your intention is playful and kind, then there's no need to be embarrassed. We can enjoy the moment together and maybe even laugh about it later. The audience erupted into applause and laughter. Some people clapped loudly, others smiled broadly, and many whispered to each other about how cool and composed Keanu was. Even Will laughed, leaning back in his chair, clearly enjoying the moment more than he had anticipated. It was no longer about a playful challenge, it was about mutual respect, humor, and understanding. The host jumped in, sensing the perfect opportunity to keep the conversation lively. "There you have it, folks," the host said, smiling. "Even the biggest stars have moments of vulnerability, and even the calmest stars can teach us lessons in life. Tonight, we are lucky to see both." Will and Keanu continued to banter lightly, but the playful tension had transformed into something richer. Will's humor brought energy and excitement, while Keanu's calmness brought perspective and warmth. The combination made the show feel genuine, fun, and unforgettable. The audience couldn't stop smiling, laughing, and paying attention. Every word, every gesture, and every glance seemed meaningful in a way that only a live interaction between two extraordinary personalities could create. By the end of this segment, the energy in the studio was electric. People were talking among themselves, sharing the lessons they had just seen, and applauding the interaction repeatedly. Will Smith had tried to embarrass Keanu Reeves, but what happened instead was a moment of mutual respect, humor, and wisdom. The playful challenge had evolved into a genuine connection, a story that the audience would remember and share for weeks to come. As the cameras pulled back to capture the wide shot of the stage, the audience could see both actors smiling, relaxed, and enjoying the moment. There was no tension, no discomfort, just the shared understanding of two professionals appreciating each other's company and creating something memorable together. The lights dimmed slightly, signaling the end of the segment, but the energy in the room lingered. People left their seats buzzing, replaying the moment in their minds, and sharing quiet laughter at the cleverness and grace of Keanu Reeves. And so, the night continued, with the audience fully engaged, the actors fully present, and the story unfolding in a way that was unexpected, meaningful, and completely unforgettable. It was a moment where humor met wisdom, playfulness met calm, and two very different personalities created magic on a stage for everyone to witness. The lights in the studio glimmered softly, casting a warm glow over the stage. The audience sat in eager anticipation, their eyes fixed on the two stars who had already created a moment that would be remembered for years. Will Smith, with his playful grin, had tried multiple times to catch Keanu Reeves off guard. Yet, every time, Keanu had responded with calm, wisdom, and a touch of subtle humor. The audience was now curious, what would happen next? Could Will finally get a reaction that surprised everyone? Or would Keanu continue to handle it effortlessly, leaving the room in admiration? Will leaned forward again, his eyes twinkling with mischief. "Okay, Keanu," he said, "I've tried my best, and I think everyone here is ready to see you squirm. Come on, just one little story that's funny, embarrassing, or even awkward. I promise we won't judge." The audience laughed at Will's insistence. They sensed that he was genuinely enjoying the playful challenge, but there was also genuine curiosity in their eyes. Everyone wanted to see the usually composed Keanu break into something unexpected. It was a rare moment, a glimpse into the private side of a public figure. Keanu remained still, calm as ever, his thoughtful gaze directed at Will. He didn't flinch, shift uncomfortably, or show any sign of embarrassment. Instead, he took a small, deliberate pause. His hands rested lightly on his lap, his posture relaxed, yet every movement carried an understated presence that drew the audience in. The silence that followed was different this time. It wasn't awkward, it was charged with suspense, as if everyone could feel that something unforgettable was about to be said. Finally, Keanu spoke, his voice steady and measured. "You know, Will," he said softly, "life is full of moments where we might feel embarrassed or unsure. But those moments are not the end of the story, they are part of it. They teach us, guide us, and sometimes, they even connect us to other people in ways we don't expect." The audience reacted immediately, their applause gentle but filled with anticipation. They could tell that Keanu was leading up to something meaningful, something beyond a simple response to Will's playful teasing. There was a shift in the energy of the room. People leaned forward, eager to catch every word. Will smiled, leaning back slightly, intrigued. "All right, I like that," he said, "but I still want to know, what's the story that really left you speechless or made you laugh so hard you couldn't stop?" Keanu's expression softened into a subtle smile. "It wasn't just one story," he said. "It's all of the little moments that seem embarrassing at first, but in hindsight, they show us something important about ourselves. For example, on one movie set early in my career, I walked onto the stage completely forgetting my lines. I froze. The crew noticed. Everyone laughed. At first, I felt embarrassed, sure. But then, I realized that everyone around me had been in the same position at some point. We were all human, all learning, all making mistakes." The audience reacted with laughter and applause. They could relate to the story, imagining their own moments of forgetfulness or awkwardness. The power of Keanu's response was not just in the story itself, but in how he shared it calmly, honestly, and without fear. Will leaned forward again, clearly impressed. "Wow, Keanu! So instead of getting embarrassed or defensive, you just laughed with them?" Keanu nodded. "Yes," he said. "And that's what made the moment meaningful. It wasn't just about me or my mistake, it was about everyone on that set, working together, sharing the experience, and learning." Sometimes, the things we think are embarrassing turn out to be the moments we remember the most fondly. The audience erupted in applause, some standing, some clapping with wide smiles. The energy in the room was electric. Keanu had taken what started as a playful attempt at embarrassment and turned it into a lesson in humility, connection, and humor. Even Will, who had started the challenge, laughed heartily, nodding his head in respect. Will leaned back in his chair, shaking his head in amazement. "I can't believe it," he said, laughing. "I came here thinking I'd get one reaction, one little embarrassed face, and instead, you just flipped it. You made it thoughtful, funny, and inspiring all at once." Keanu smiled softly, appreciating the acknowledgement. "I guess," he said, "life gives us these opportunities. We can choose to be embarrassed, or we can choose to learn, laugh, and connect with others. It's up to us." The host, sensing the perfect moment for reflection, spoke up. "Ladies and gentlemen, what we just witnessed is remarkable. Not only do we have humor, energy, and playfulness, but also wisdom, calm, and perspective. This is a rare combination, and it's a moment that will stay with all of us for a long time." The audience clapped again, their admiration evident. People were whispering to each other, sharing quiet laughter and awe at Keanu's composure. Cameras panned across the crowd, capturing every face, every smile, and every expression of delight. It was clear that everyone had been touched by the moment, even in a subtle way. Will, always full of energy, decided to add one final playful gesture. He leaned closer, pretending to whisper, "So, if I tried really hard, could I ever embarrass you?" Keanu looked at him calmly, a gentle smile playing on his lips. "If your intention is playful and kind, Will, then there's really no reason for embarrassment," he said. "We can enjoy the moment together. That's what makes life enjoyable." The audience cheered loudly, many laughing at the clever way Keanu had handled the playful challenge. The energy in the room was at its peak. People were excited, inspired, and entertained all at once. The balance between Will's playful energy and Keanu's calm wisdom had created a magical moment that no one would forget. The host continued the conversation, guiding the discussion toward lessons learned from life and career. Will shared stories full of humor, mistakes, and funny experiences that made the audience laugh heartily. Keanu added quiet reflections, moments that made people think and smile at the same time. The combination of energy and calm, humor and wisdom, made the segment unforgettable. As the cameras continued to roll, the audience realized that the playful attempt to embarrass Keanu had evolved into something much deeper. It wasn't about teasing or winning, it was about connection, understanding, and shared experiences. The laughter, applause, and admiration filled the studio, creating a feeling of warmth and joy that lingered long after the moment had passed. By the end of the segment, it was clear that Keanu's response had left everyone speechless, not because it was shocking or dramatic, but because it was thoughtful, clever, and completely genuine. Will, impressed and laughing, acknowledged that he had not expected such a perfect balance of humor and wisdom. The audience had witnessed a rare exchange, a meeting of two different personalities that resulted in something extraordinary. As the segment closed, the audience continued to applaud, some giving standing ovations. Cameras captured the wide shot of both actors smiling, relaxed, and enjoying the moment together. The energy in the room was vibrant, filled with admiration, respect, and shared joy. People knew they had just witnessed something unique, an interaction that would be remembered, shared, and celebrated long after the show ended. And so, Part 4 concluded with laughter, applause, and reflection. Will's playful challenge had been met with calm wisdom, Keanu's composure had inspired admiration, and the audience had been left speechless in the best possible way. The night continued, but the memory of this exchange would linger, a reminder that humor, humility, and grace could create magic in the most unexpected moments. The applause in the studio lingered, echoing through the space as the audience sat in awe of what they had just witnessed. Will Smith and Keanu Reeves shared a glance, both smiling, both aware that the interaction they had just experienced was something special. It had started as a playful attempt to embarrass Keanu, but it had grown into a moment of laughter, wisdom, and genuine connection. The energy in the room was electric, yet warm, a rare combination that made the audience feel both entertained and inspired. As the cameras continued to roll, the host decided to guide the conversation toward reflection. "What we've just seen," the host said, smiling at the audience, "is more than just playful teasing. It's a lesson in how we handle ourselves, how we connect with others, and how humor and humility can work together." "Will, Keanu, what does this moment mean to you?" Will leaned back in his chair, his energy still high, but now mixed with admiration. "Honestly," he said, "I came here thinking I was going to get a little reaction, maybe a funny face or a laugh at Keanu's expense. But what I got instead was something amazing." Keanu turned the moment into a lesson, a reminder that being human is not about avoiding mistakes, but about embracing them, learning from them, and laughing along the way. Keanu, calm as ever, nodded in agreement. "It's true," he said softly. "Life gives us moments that can feel awkward, embarrassing, or uncomfortable. But those moments are also opportunities. They can teach us patience, humility, and understanding. They can connect us to others in ways we don't expect. Humor, kindness, and honesty are the best ways to navigate these moments." The audience responded with applause, some standing, some clapping softly, all clearly moved by the sincerity of the exchange. Cameras captured faces filled with admiration and excitement, as if the viewers at home could also feel the connection happening on stage. It was a rare, genuine moment in a world often filled with scripted interviews and rehearsed performances. Will, still smiling, looked at Keanu with genuine respect. "You know, Keanu, I think people forget sometimes that the most powerful moments don't come from being loud or flashy. They come from honesty, humility, and being yourself. Tonight, you reminded all of us of that." Keanu's eyes softened, a quiet smile forming on his face. "Thank you, Will. And I think you reminded everyone that humor and energy can make life enjoyable. It's about balance. We all have different ways of experiencing life, but when we respect and appreciate each other, even playful moments become meaningful." The host, sensing the perfect opportunity for the audience to reflect, spoke again. "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we witnessed something rare. Humor, humility, energy, wisdom, and grace all in one moment. Not just from one person, but from both of our incredible guests. This is the kind of exchange that leaves a lasting impression." The audience erupted into applause once more, louder and longer than before. People clapped, cheered, and even laughed softly at the warmth of the interaction. Some whispered to each other, amazed by the contrast and balance between Will's vibrant energy and Keanu's calm wisdom. It was a lesson not only in entertainment but in life itself, how two different personalities could come together to create something memorable, meaningful, and joyful. After the applause settled, the conversation turned to the reactions of the viewers watching from home. Clips of the exchange were already being shared on social media, gaining thousands of views within minutes. Fans praised both actors for their authenticity, humor, and grace. Some commented on how Will's energy made the moment lively and fun, while others admired Keanu's calm and thoughtful responses. The combination created a perfect balance that appealed to a wide audience. Will laughed lightly, leaning back in his chair. "I have to admit," he said, "I didn't expect this to go the way it did. I thought I'd get one funny reaction, maybe a little embarrassment, but instead, we all shared a moment that felt meaningful. And that's even better than a laugh at someone else's expense." Keanu nodded, his calm presence filling the room with quiet assurance. "Exactly. Moments like these remind us that life is not about trying to impress others or avoid mistakes. It's about being honest, kind, and present. If we can laugh at ourselves and appreciate others, life becomes much more enjoyable." The audience cheered again, some standing in appreciation, others clapping softly, all clearly moved by the sincerity and humor of the exchange. It was rare to see celebrities interact in such an authentic way, blending entertainment with reflection and laughter with wisdom. The moment had transcended a simple talk show segment, it had become a story that would be remembered, shared, and cherished. The host, sensing the perfect conclusion, guided the conversation to a close. "Before we wrap up tonight, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've learned. Will, Keanu, thank you for showing us that humor, humility, and grace can coexist. You've given the audience laughter, insight, and a memorable experience that will last far beyond tonight." Will smiled broadly. "It's been amazing," he said. "I think tonight showed everyone that life is full of moments like this. Moments where we can connect, laugh, and learn. And if we can do that with humility and respect, then those moments are truly unforgettable." Keanu's eyes softened, his calm voice carrying across the studio. "Thank you, Will, and thank you to everyone here. Life is a series of experiences, some small, some large. Each one is an opportunity to learn, to laugh, and to connect. If we approach each moment with honesty, kindness, and appreciation, we can create memories that stay with us forever." The audience erupted into applause once again, louder and more heartfelt than ever. Some people were clapping for the lesson, some for the humor, and some for the genuine connection they had witnessed. Cameras captured the smiles, the wide eyes, and the excited faces, immortalizing the moment for anyone who would watch the show later. As the show began to close, Will and Keanu shared a final handshake, a gesture that symbolized mutual respect and understanding. The audience cheered, recognizing that this was more than a formality, it was a celebration of connection, humor, and humility. The cameras pulled back to capture the wide shot of the stage, showing both actors standing, smiling, and waving to the audience. The energy in the room was vibrant, warm, and unforgettable. Backstage, crew members whispered to each other about how remarkable the segment had been. Clips were already trending online, and people were talking about it in quiet excitement. The playful attempt to embarrass Keanu had become a story of mutual respect, laughter, and inspiration. Both actors had shined in their own ways, creating a moment that would be remembered not just for humor, but for the message it carried. Fans at home shared clips on social media, praising Keanu's calm and wise responses, while also celebrating Will's playful energy and charm. The exchange became a viral example of how humor and composure could exist together, how mistakes or awkward moments could turn into lessons, and how two very different personalities could create magic when they respected each other. As the final moments of the show faded, the audience and viewers alike felt a sense of warmth and inspiration. Laughter had been shared, lessons had been learned, and a rare, genuine interaction between two incredible personalities had created a story that would linger in people's minds. The night ended with applause, smiles, and quiet reflections on the beauty of authenticity and connection. And so, the story concluded not with embarrassment, but with laughter and wisdom, not with awkwardness, but with respect and admiration. Will Smith and Keanu Reeves had turned a playful challenge into a meaningful, unforgettable experience. The audience left with hearts a little lighter, minds a little wiser, and memories of a moment that proved that humor, humility, and grace could coexist in the most extraordinary way.